August 22nd, 1791. Midnight, a tropical storm hammers Saint-Domingue, the richest colony in the world. In a dense forest clearing, 200 enslaved people gather in secret. Lightning splits the sky. They're about to start a revolution that will shake the entire world. A voodoo priest named Duddy Boukman raises his arms. He speaks of freedom. He speaks of vengeance. Blood is spilled. A pact is sealed. Within hours, the plantations will burn. Within 13 years, they will do the impossible. They will defeat Napoleon Bonaparte himself, and they will create the first Black Republic in history. But here's what should blow your mind. Everyone said it was impossible. Enslaved people can't defeat a professional army. They don't have weapons, they don't have training, they won anyway. That's the story we're telling today. How enslaved people survived the Middle Passage, how they resisted every single day, how they fought and escaped and forced the world to end slavery. Because here's what they don't teach you. Enslaved people were never passive victims. From the moment of capture to the final abolition, there was resistance. Always. If you're new here, welcome. If this episode challenges the way you see history, please like the video and subscribe. If you haven't watched episodes 1, start there. Link would be in the description. It explores the ancient origins of slavery and how race was deliberately invented. Turn on notifications, because every episode builds toward the final one, where we connect this history to the world we live in today and why understanding it still matters. Let's continue. Act 1, Capture and the Middle Passage. Your life ends in an instant. You're in your village in West Africa. Maybe it's 1,750, maybe 1,780. You're farming, trading, just living. Then you hear screaming. Raiders burst from the forest, armed men, moving fast. Sometimes they're from a neighboring kingdom at war. Sometimes they're professional slave catchers. Sometimes, and this is the worst part, they're your own people, selling you for guns and European goods. You run, you don't make it, they chain you. A wooden yoke around your neck, connecting you to other captives, iron shackles on your wrists and ankles, and you walk for days, sometimes weeks, sometimes hundreds of miles. Minimal food, just enough water to keep you alive, because dead captives have no value. If you can't keep up, you're killed. If you try to escape, you're killed as an example. For every 100 people sold on the coast, another 20 to 30 die during the march. You reach the coast. You're held in a barracoon, a fortress where captives are kept, sometimes for months, waiting for a ship. Then the ship arrives. This is exactly what those slave ships were like. The hold has a ceiling about 4 feet high. Now imagine that space packed with 300 human beings. 400, sometimes more. You're lying side by side with barely enough room to turn over, chained to the person next to you. Sometimes you're on wooden shelves stacked 3 levels high, with maybe 18 inches between levels. The person above you might be sick. Their waste falls on you. Your waste falls on the person below. There's no bathroom. It's dark. The air is thick. Hundreds of people breathing, sweating, vomiting in an enclosed space. The heat near the equator can reach 120 degrees in the hold. People die from heat stroke. And the smell. Other ships could detect a slave ship from miles away downwind. Human waste, vomit, sweat, blood, death, a stench so overpowering that crew members got sick opening the holds. Food once or twice a day, maybe rice, beans, barely enough to survive. This lasts 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer. People die every day. Dysentery, smallpox, ophthalmia. Some people choose death. They stop eating. They throw themselves overboard when brought on deck. The sharks follow the ships. The mortality rate averaged 15%. Nearly 2 million people died during the Middle Passage. But survival itself was resistance. Every person who lived through it did so through will, through choosing to keep breathing despite everything. And some fought back. Over the entire Atlantic slave trade, there were more than 400 documented ship revolts. In 1839, on the Amistad, 53 Africans revolted. They killed the captain. Eventually, they ended up in New York and fought a legal battle. John Quincy Adams defended them. They won. In 1841, the Supreme Court ruled in their favor, and they went home. Most revolts ended in death, but they happened anyway. The Middle Passage was hell. But for those who survived, something worse was waiting. Act 2, Plantation Hell. You survive the crossing. You reach land. You're sold. Potential buyers examine you, your teeth, your muscles. You're poked and prodded like livestock. Families are separated deliberately. Your mother sold to one plantation, your father to another, siblings scattered. You're taken to a plantation. Your life becomes labor. A typical day on a sugar plantation in Jamaica, the deadliest form of slavery. You wake before sunrise, maybe 4 hours of sleep in a cabin shared with a dozen others. Then you're in the fields. The gang system groups working in lines, supervised by overseers with whips. You're planting or harvesting sugarcane. Back-breaking work, digging holes, cutting cane with machetes for hours. Cuts and injuries are constant. You work from sunrise to sunset, 12 to 14 hours, in heat exceeding 90 degrees. If you slow down, the whip comes. During harvest season, work doesn't stop at sunset. You go to the mill. The sugar mill is one of the most dangerous places on earth. The cane is fed into rollers strong enough to crush bone. If your hand gets caught, you lose your arm. Some mills kept axes nearby to quickly amputate before the entire body was pulled in. The juice is boiled in huge kettles over intense fires. The heat is unbearable. People pass out. Some fall into the boiling sugar and die. This continues until midnight during harvest. Then, a few hours sleep, and you start again. The mortality rate was so high that the enslaved population couldn't sustain itself. More people died than were born. Planters maintained their workforce only by constantly importing new people from Africa. They knew this. They calculated it and decided it was more economical to work people to death and replace them than improve conditions. The system was designed to consume human beings. On cotton plantations, you have a quota, the amount you must pick each day. If you don't meet it, you're whipped. If you exceed it, your quota increases tomorrow. On rice plantations, you're working in swamps. Malaria is rampant. Everywhere, the whip maintains control. Men, women, children, everyone can be whipped. You can be sold at any moment. Your family can be torn apart with no warning. Sexual violence is constant. Enslaved women have no protection from rape. The children born from these rapes are enslaved. But even in this hell, humanity persisted. Enslaved people created culture. Music, work, songs, spirituals, the blues, jazz, gospel, all born from slavery. They created family structures despite everything. They created their own marriage ceremonies. They raised children together when they could. They created religious communities, a Christianity that emphasized liberation, that identified with Israelites escaping Egypt, and they resisted every single day, working slowly deliberate slowness as sabotage, breaking tools, so many mysterious accidents, playing dumb, pretending not to understand instructions, stealing food, taking back value they created, running away, even for just a few days. Some ran permanently. Maroons escaped slaves who formed independent communities. In Jamaica, Maroons established mountain communities that survived for decades. They fought the British to a standstill and won treaties recognizing their freedom in 1740. In Brazil, Quilombo dos Palmares existed for almost 100 years. At its peak, maybe 30,000 people lived there. These communities threatened the entire system. They proved enslaved people could survive without masters, and sometimes resistance became open revolt. Act 3, Revolts in Haiti. September 9th, 1739. Stono, South Carolina. An enslaved man named Jemmy led about 20 people in rebellion. They raided a store for weapons and marched towards Spanish Florida. They burned plantations, killed about 25 whites. Their numbers grew to 100. The militia crushed them within a day. Many were killed immediately, others executed. Their heads put on posts as warnings. January 8th, 1811, Louisiana. Charles Deslandes led the largest slave revolt in U.S. history. Between 200 and 500 enslaved people rose up. They marched toward New Orleans, burning plantations. They were organized drums and banners, moving as an army. The revolt lasted 2 days. The militia crushed it. 95 rebels killed or executed, their heads placed on pikes along the river. Nearly 100 heads. August 21st, 1831. Southampton County, Virginia. Nat Turner, an enslaved preacher, led a revolt that haunted the South for generations. Turner believed God called him to lead his people to freedom. He and about 70 followers killed about 60 white people. The revolt lasted 2 days. Turner hid for 2 months before being captured and hanged. The South's response was pure terror. Teaching enslaved people to read became illegal. Gatherings restricted. Patrols increased. But they couldn't stop what was happening in the Caribbean. Back to August 22nd, 1791, that ceremony in the forest. Saint-Domingue produced more wealth than any colony in the Americas. 500,000 enslaved Africans working themselves to death. They outnumbered whites by more than 10 to 1. They watched the French Revolution unfold. Liberty, equality, fraternity. But not for them. That night in August, the revolt exploded. Within hours, plantations burned. Within weeks, thousands joined. Within months, much of the North was under rebel control. France sent professional soldiers. They should have crushed it easily. They didn't. Toussaint Louverture emerged as the leader. He'd been enslaved until age 50, but he was brilliant. He organized the rebels into a real army. The war lasted 13 years. France sent more troops. Spain tried to invade. Britain invaded. The rebels defeated them all. Napoleon sent his brother-in-law with 33,000 soldiers in 1802. The rebels defeated them too. Yellow fever helped, but the military victory was real. On January 1st, 1804, Haiti declared independence. The first black republic, the first nation founded by formerly enslaved people. Enslaved people defeated Napoleon at the height of his power. Thomas Jefferson refused to recognize Haitian independence. The United States didn't establish relations with Haiti until 1862, 58 years later. Throughout the Americas, slaveholders panicked. They tightened control. But enslaved people everywhere heard about Haiti, and it gave them hope. Haiti paid a terrible price. The war killed maybe 200,000 people. The economy was destroyed, and in 1825, France demanded compensation. 150 million francs, about $21 billion today, for lost property. Haiti agreed, desperate for recognition. They took out loans at brutal interest rates. Haiti spent 122 years paying off that debt. Even today, Haiti is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. This debt is one major reason why. But Haiti survived. And its revolution inspired every subsequent fight for freedom. Act 4, Abolition and After. The 19th century brought increasing pressure on slavery. Britain abolished the slave trade in 1807. In 1833, Britain abolished slavery throughout its empire. About 800,000 people freed. But the British government paid £20 million in compensation to the slaveholders. The formerly enslaved people got nothing. In the United States, the Underground Railroad helped thousands escape. Harriet Tubman made about 13 trips south. She personally led about 70 people to freedom. She carried a gun not for slave catchers, but to threaten escapees who wanted to turn back. You'll be free or die. Frederick Douglass escaped in 1838 and became one of the most powerful abolitionist voices. Then came the Civil War. When Union armies moved through the South, enslaved people ran to them. Thousands. They provided intelligence. They joined the Union Army when allowed. About 200,000 black men served in Union forces. They helped win the war. January 1st, 1863. Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. April 1865. The Confederacy surrendered. December 1865. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery throughout the United States. 4 million people were freed. Victory, freedom. Except it wasn't. The 13th Amendment says, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist." That exception allowed the South to recreate slavery. Southern states passed black codes. Vagrancy laws, making it illegal to be unemployed. Laws requiring proof of employment or face arrest. Once arrested, you could be leased to plantations and mines as convict labor. Enslaved again, legally. Convict leasing was worse than slavery in some ways. The company had no stake in your survival. Work you to death, get new ones. This lasted until the 1942nd. Sharecropping trapped millions in debt bondage. And there was terrorism. The KKK used lynching to maintain white supremacy. Between 1877 and 1950, more than 4,000 documented lynchings occurred. Jim Crow mandated segregation. Black people systematically excluded from voting. The North had its own discrimination. Redlining, sundown towns, job discrimination. The legacy of slavery didn't end with abolition. It evolved. Conclusion. From capture to the Middle Passage to plantation hell to resistance to revolt to abolition to the continuing struggle. Enslaved people were never passive. There was always resistance. The Haitian Revolution proved enslaved people could defeat empires. The Underground Railroad proved networks could save lives. Eventually, slavery was abolished because of pressure combined with the unending resistance of enslaved people themselves. But abolition didn't end the struggle. The systems evolved. Convict leasing, segregation, lynching, mass incarceration. The ideology that justified slavery didn't disappear. It found new forms. And the resistance didn't end either. The civil rights movement was a continuation. We're still dealing with slavery's legacy. The wealth gap, the incarceration crisis, educational disparities. Understanding this isn't about guilt. It's about seeing clearly and understanding that resistance works. Not quickly, not easily, but it works. From chains to freedom. That's the arc when people refuse to accept injustice. The work continues. How did slavery's legacy shape the modern world? How does a system abolished in 1865 still affect us in 2025?